Hello, welcome to my kitchen. It is my 100th video that I'm sharing on Facebook. I can hardly believe it. I can remember being in this kitchen a little over 2 years ago and making pizza. That was my debut video. So I thought, you know what? I think I'll go back to my roots and I am going to show you how to make your own pizza dough and how to make an easy white pizza, which is my personal favorite. Now this is a pizza for two, or if you have a good healthy appetite, a pizza for one. And you can easily double this recipe accordingly. It's super simple. Now to get started, I've got 1/3 cup of water, and to this 1/3 cup of water, I'm adding a tablespoon of olive oil. Now I'm going to heat this in the microwave for 30 seconds, so I'll be right back. This feels perfect. It's cool enough to where I can keep my hand here and it's not burning my hand. If it gets a little bit too hot for you, just set it aside. That's one of the reasons why I heat this first, so if it does get too hot, it has a chance to cool down just a little bit. Now let's talk about the dry ingredients. And I am using bread flour. I think it makes a difference. I think that it makes the pizza crispier and more tender, if that makes sense at all. That's the great thing about a pizza. You want it to be crispy, but yet when you get to those edges, you want it to be just a little chewy. So good. I'm using 1 cup. Now I've got my yeast, and I'm using a rapid rise. I love this rapid rise yeast. It makes life so much easier. And I'm using 1/2 teaspoon. And that's going right onto my flour mixture. This is only going to take maybe 20 to 30 minutes to rise. That's one of the reasons why I like this. There's no proofing, there's no special instructions. You can just put it right into your flour and it is ready to go. Now I've got some sugar and I'm using a teaspoon of sugar. If you say, oh, I don't know if I want sugar in my pizza dough, well, if you're using yeast, you have to have sugar because the yeast lives on the sugar and it won't rise without it. To balance that sugar, I'm using 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. And now I'm just going to stir it together. I just want to get all of that yeast all throughout this flour. And listen, if you don't have bread flour, all-purpose flour works wonderfully. The bread flour is just a little bit better. I use it when I make breads and I make pizza a lot. My husband and I love it. And honestly, it takes less time to make this pizza than it does for you to call and have it delivered. True. Now, I've got my liquid and it feels like a good temperature, and all of this is going in at one time. And I'm going to keep that close and I'll show you what we'll do with that in a minute. And I'm going to stir it together. Look how craggly this is. Don't be alarmed. I'm taking it all and I'm going to put it on my counter. A clean counter is your best friend. Second best friend are your hands. And this is so fun to get the kids involved. Oh, the grands love it. And I'm just pressing it all together. I'm taking it and folding it and pressing it together. This dough is nice and warm. It's just what you want. You don't want your water hot. If it's hot, then it's going to kill your yeast. I like to say it needs to be about the temperature that you would make a baby's bottle. And what I'm doing is folding this, and then I turn it and I fold it again and I press my palms into it. And I fold and press as I go. And I'm really fortunate with this particular dough because I'm not needing to add any extra flour. It's not sticking to my hands, it's not sticking to the counter. It's just perfect. But if you do find that it is a little sticky, then start with a tablespoon of flour, sprinkle it on, and just work it into your dough. And keep working more in until it's no longer sticky. Now I am going to keep doing this for 2 to 3 minutes. The larger your dough, the more time you're going to have to spend doing this. And it's fun when you're having a pizza party. I love to just make a big ball of dough and pass it around and let everybody do a little bit of kneading. And then cut the dough into the desired portions, and everybody's had a hand in it. Kids love it. Just want to make sure that it's nice and smooth and it doesn't have any lumps. Now, this is perfect. It's really tight right now, but you'll see once it rises, it's going to have some elasticity to it and be really easy to shape into our pizza. Now, I told you I was keeping this close. I've got a paper towel and I'm just going to wipe out the water. But there's oil in here and it's the perfect container to let this dough rise in. And it's still a little bit warm, which I like. I think it helps make it rise a little bit faster. I'm going to cover it with a little bit of plastic wrap. Now I'm going to let this sit for 20 to 30 minutes. It just needs to double in size. When I make it and I let it rise in this container, I know that when the dough touches the plastic wrap, that it's ready to go. This is going to go right there, and I'm going to clean up this mess and get my toppings ready, and we're about to have pizza. Look at this pizza dough. This is perfection. It's doubled in size. It smells so good. Now, I'm just going to pull this out and sprinkle the tiniest bit of flour on here. Just a pinch. I don't need much because this is not sticky. It's just perfect. I'm just relaxing this dough a little bit. Getting some nice air bubbles in there. And now I'm going to gently stretch it. Gently, not much. If you're doing this with the kiddos, just encourage them to be gentle. The dough will work with you. Perfect. Now, this is a must. This is some non-stick tin foil, and I'm only going to use a piece that is big enough for my dough to fit on. Now, it doesn't matter if it's round. You want it to kind of look rustic and authentic. Now make sure when you use your non-stick aluminum foil that you're putting your dough on the non-stick side. Super important. Otherwise, there's no reason to use the non-stick. I'm gonna just shape this. Now, for my white sauce, I've just got a jarred Alfredo sauce. And after opening this, since I'm not going to use that much, I'll keep it in the refrigerator. It keeps for quite a while. And I'm going to spoon 3 tablespoons onto my dough. If you want to use a little bit more, you can. But one thing that we don't want is a real heavy dough. This looks so good already. Now, I have a pizza peel. If you don't have one, just grab a cookie sheet. I've used that many a times over at people's house when we've made these and they didn't have a peel. I just use the back of a cookie sheet, and actually it's fairly easy. But I'm going to take my peel and just slide this underneath the tin foil. Now I'm going to par cook this. I've got my oven preheated to 500 degrees, and I've let it sit there for a few minutes because you want your oven screaming hot. I also have my pizza stone in there heating up and preheating, and it's going to be nice and hot. I'm going to cook this for about 3 minutes until the dough is set. Then I'll come back and show you how we're going to finish this off. I'm pulling the pizza out and putting it back on my peel. Now, I'm done with the tin foil. See how the dough has set? This helps to get a much crispier and lighter pizza. A lot of times our kitchen ovens don't get hot enough to cook the dough properly, but when you do it this way and you set your dough prior to putting all your ingredients on, you're going to have that nice and crispy crunch that we all love in our pizza. Now I'm using this mozzarella and provolone mix. I love provolone cheese on a pizza. And I'm just going to spread this out, put as much cheese as you like. Now don't judge me. I forgot my mushrooms at the store, and I had a few jarred mushrooms in my refrigerator. Okay, now I've got my spinach, and I'm going to tear just a few leaves and put it right over the top. Now this spinach is going to wilt. Now I want to hit it with a little bit of salt because those mushrooms and that spinach need the salt. I've also got some Italian seasoning. And last but not least, and of course optional, I've got a few red pepper flakes. And I like to put them on my pizza before I cook it. It's just a personal preference. It cooks into the cheese, and it just gives everything a little extra bite of goodness. Now, this is going back into the oven for probably a good 6 minutes until this crust gets nice and golden brown. Look at this beautiful pizza. Doesn't it look delicious? Oh, so hot and bubbly. Can you see how brown it is on the bottom? I can't wait. I've just got to cut into this. Now listen, if you don't have a pizza stone, you can go to any home improvement store and get a ceramic tile and use that. When I have pizza parties, which I do often, I pull out my ceramic tiles and I put several in the oven, and they work perfect. Now, let's see how we did. Do you hear that crunch? My mouth is watering. Yeah. This is perfection. You can have your own pizzeria right in your own kitchen. It's salty, it's cheesy. The crust is crispy, but yet it's still got a little bit of softness to it. It's exactly the consistency that you want it to have. Oh, so good. Thanks so much for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed this 100th video. And the reason why I have continued on is because of you, and what a blessing you've been to me. Thanks so much. Go make you some pizza. Press that like button, share it with your friends, and I'll see you next time.